So before we start, something a little more serious. This is a red ribbon. As you all know, it's AIDS awareness in December, a disease that still sadly affects many lives. We've won many battles over the past year in medicine, as well as in the field of sexual rights, but alas, this is one demon that has yet to be conquered. Like last year, be sure to check the link down below if you want more information. This is a really good cause, and I hope you guys throw in your lot. And just wanted to say a huge thank you to Eli for letting me participate again. With that said, we return you to our feature presentation. So we all know about Monty Python's Life of Brian, right? A 1979 comedy by the iconic British troupe that set the world ablaze with biting religious satire and that unmistakably playful yet surreal tone that made them such a household name. Well, what if I told you that the following year, Columbia would try to recapture that kind of biblical farce by bringing on a whole slew of then top comedians, and the writing and directing being put in the hands of Saturday Night Live veterans? Sounds like a pretty sweet deal, right? Well, it kinda wasn't. Holy Moses tells the unfortunate tale of Herschel, an Israelite born around the same time as Moses, and whom he often crosses paths with over the course of his very unlucky life, going about under the mistaken assumption of being God's chosen one. Basically, Herschel's life is one long parody of the Exodus story, with some other biblical references thrown in, such as David and Goliath, as well as Sodom and Gomorrah. Despite the all-star comedy cast, and frankly it is nothing to sniff at, none of the actors here can salvage this material at all. Dudley Moore is just going through the motions as the quote-unquote lovable dweeb Herschel, and really looks bored most of the time as he wades through lame gag after lame gag, while surrounding him in thankless cameo roles are the likes of Madeline Kahn, Dom DeLuise, John Ritter, Richard Pryor, and so many more. But the thing is, they're on screen so little, and their parts are so inconsequential to the story as a whole, as well as really not making any use of their talents, that it just begs the question of why? Why bother casting them if you're not going to do anything with their various masteries of timing or wit or improv or physical comedy? What's the point of getting really funny people to not do especially funny things? Presentation isn't that much better. SNL veteran Gary Weiss's direction is lax and in no way tries to replicate the size or scope of old biblical epics, draining even more life from the already bland gags. More on that in a bit. Everything is shot in a lot of boring mid-wides like a TV sketch, as if they just dumped the camera on the set without any real thought for composition or trying to take advantage of that for comedic effect. Even the score by the legendary Patrick Williams, while taking on an appropriately Egyptian flavor, never aspires to be more than just a little wacky and kooky, and again is a waste of a good talent. It just makes me yearn more for John Morris's mastery of parody scores, which actually felt like they rose to the occasion. In fact, that very neatly summarizes the film's comedy. Think the trend of lazy spoofs started with the Wayans brothers back in the 90s? Oh no. Even as far back as the early 80s, we have a film built almost completely on lame wit and even lazier slapstick. And when it tries to have a plot, it's just nothing more than an excuse to stitch a bunch of different sketches together, all vaguely connected with the Old Testament. For no real reason, we're suddenly in the middle of David and Goliath, and then whoop, time up on that sketch, now we're in the middle of Sodom. All just barely held together by a rather tepid and bare-bones what-if telling of the Exodus story. Remember how Life of Brian, on top of being inventive and wacky in that unmistakably Python way with all your look on the bright side of life and your naughty boys and your biggest dickuses? Remember how it also discussed and satirized religion and the fanaticism that can come from it when taken too literally? Holy Moses has absolutely none of that cleverness, despite the premise being absolutely ripe for it, with having a protagonist always conflicted with his faith as well as what he means to other people who share that faith. The film is practically screaming to do something interesting or daring with this material, but it's so one-note, so completely toothless, and seems to think that just sticking a couple of extra boobs on a stone statue, or Herschel falling down a sand dune for the 1000th time, is apparently the highest sort of comedy to be mined here. Mix that in with a completely pointless bookend of Dudley Moore and Lorraine Newman in modern times as tourists in the Holy Land that goes nowhere, and seriously, it pretty much gives them nothing but googly eyes and Dudley getting his hand repeatedly slammed by the door of the bus they're driving on to just work with, and characters who are there only to be props for the gags, with Herschel himself being a completely dull idiot that you never get behind. And waste really is the best word to sum this film up. What could have been Brian by way of Mel Brooks just amounts to a plod with no spine and even less joy in its daring. And the people involved should know better and can do better. We've seen them do better many times. It says something when the Little Moses segment from Brooks's History of the World, one of his lesser films it has to be said, is far better than this near 2-hour production.